The document which opens the exhibition is the 1819 Treaty of Singapore, which was signed between Sir Stamford Raffles, representing the British East India Company, and Singapore's then Malay rulers, the Sultan Hussein and the Temanggung Abdul Rahman. And what it did was that it gave the British exclusive rights to set up a trading post in Singapore in exchange for compensation for the Malay rulers. On display in the exhibition is an original copy of Raffles' regulations were set out across 1823. And these regulations represent the earliest attempt by the British to establish a formal legal code in Singapore. So the interesting thing about the regulations was that they were actually illegal. And this was because neither Raffles nor his superiors in Bengal had the legal authority to appoint judges and enact British laws. The British didn't even have sovereignty over Singapore at that point in 1823. They would only attain sovereignty from the Malay rulers of Singapore in 1824. So they were essentially in Singapore enacting laws which were illegal on land which they didn't possess. Although to be fair to Raffles, he meant his regulations to be provisional until such time they could bring in the formal laws to Singapore, British laws to Singapore, which eventually came in 1826. The Europeans in Singapore were actually aware that the regulations were illegal. There were various implications of administering a trading post without a proper legal code. So one story was relating to the first resident, William Farquhar, was that he actually charged a British sea captain, this man called Captain Gillian, for rape in Singapore. And he had him impounded and sent to the High Court in British Bengal for punishment. However, the court in Bengal found Gillian innocent. Farquhar didn't actually have the rights, the legal authority to impound him. He turned around and successfully sued Farquhar. How were the regulations propagated to the people living in Singapore at the time, right? So apparently, copies of the regulations were originally in English language, and then they were translated into Chinese and Malay languages and other local languages, and then they were fixed at prominent locations around the town centre. For some of the regulations, in particular this regulation on prohibiting gambling, what Raffles did was that because he wanted it to be to come into effect right away, he had it announced to the people by beat of gong. So essentially there was someone beating a gong, and there would be a town crier behind him who would read out the regulation in the different languages. The regulations, what it did was that it introduced basic principles of British law into Singapore while also respecting local laws and customs, particularly regarding religion, marriage and inheritance. The British were keen to accommodate these local customs insofar as they did not totally go against their own laws. As far as it was within a reasonable bounds, the British would accommodate local practices, and this pragmatic concession to balance English laws with local customs would become a hallmark of British governance in Singapore.